So throughout the One Piece community, there are two major tiers of debate. First is the top tiers, marked by groups such as the Yonko or the Admirals. The second is the high tiers, the commanders, the kids, the laws. But one thing I realized about this tier is that they are all just Zoro victims. Seriously, all of the talk of Sanji versus Law, King versus Katakuri, Boa versus Yamato, none of it matters because they all lose to Zoro. And today, I'm going to prove that. I'll cover the 12 most popular high tiers, ranking them on how well they do against the swordsman, which is basically a strength ranking with some exceptions, you'll see. Before we get into it though, context. If I boldly state Zoro beats 12 fan favorite characters without bringing up these points, people will call me a biased idiot, though they'll probably do that anyways. First off, remember most of the One Piece community already believes Zoro is verging into that Admiral slash Yonko tier for a reason. We literally see him threatening Emperors slash Gorosei members multiple times. That's not me saying he can beat these characters, I'm just recognizing that out of the high tiers, Zoro is the closest to top tier. Second, what do you think Zoro's next power up will be? He already has Advanced Conqueror's Haki, the most powerful ability on the seas. What did Luffy get after he awakened Advanced Conquerors? I know some will say Observation Haki, but Zoro already has the basics of Observation mastered. So what relevant usage of it would he need besides Future Sight? There is not enough time in the story left for Zoro to master regular Observation in some ambiguous way, then master Future Sight in a different fight. Like, let's just cut out the middleman. No matter what path you prefer, whether it be Sky-Splitting Conqueror's Haki or Future Sight, Zoro will become far faster and or stronger, which will, without a shadow of a doubt, put him in the same tier as the weaker Admirals, Big Mom, and the Gorosei members. A reminder, he has already threatened said characters in base, let alone King of Hell, which he's never shown to a top tier. With that out of the way, we can have a more understanding Discord, though I still need to prove why he can beat all these guys in the first place. Doflamingo fucking sucks. Most people understand he's been power creeped. It's not to the insane degree where the Toby Roppo can beat him, because he would actually whoop their asses. However, Dofi should not be in discussion against any of the top Yonko commanders, especially not Zoro. To put this into perspective, Dofi was getting clapped by Gear 4, a similar version of which could not do any damage to Kaido whatsoever. Again, all of these punches that rock Doflamingo did absolutely nothing to Kaido. Meanwhile, the Scabbards can casually cut Kaido, base Rooftop Luffy above them, Mosshead beyond that. Base Zoro could probably one-shot Doflamingo, and it doesn't get any better for speed. Dofi might be faster than the Scabbards, though it doesn't really matter because he scales to Luffy without Future Sight, whereas Zoro scales to Luffy with it. So yeah, base Zoro probably no diffs Dofi, not even talking about King of Hell. I know someone will bring up Birdcage or Environmental Awakening, but even if the swordsman struggles with those things, he is so much faster than Dofi, it doesn't matter. Now Jinbei, unlike the last guy, is actually able to hurt an Emperor, yet not to the same extent as Zoro. His best feat is pushing a weakened Big Mom, not drawing blood or doing any lasting damage. On the other hand, base Armament Haki Zoro is literally scaring sane Big Mom while he's not even aiming for her. Yeah, there's no discussion here. Jinbei also has zero speed feats whatsoever. He scales above a Toby Roppo member who is weaker than all the Scabbards. Low diff. Boa Hancock is not much better. Despite what most think, she's not first commander level or whatever y'all want to call her this week. The fact that I've seen people say Boa is first commander, admiral, or even Yonko level shows how unscalable she is. But everything changed when the Weaver cards dropped and we learned she's just on par with S-Snake. Yeah, that's it. Still extremely impressive because there's really only a handful of characters in One Piece who can beat a Seraphim, which applies to Boa as well. In fact, Hancock has less abilities than the Seraph, meaning her physicals and Devil Fruit have to carry more. Speaking of, it doesn't matter if Zoro is attracted to her or not, because Boa can turn anything to stone with her kicks. So theoretically, she could one-shot him, possibly break one of his swords. We've never seen her clash with Armament Haki. If she could turn that into stone, it would be extremely broken. Then the only way to counter her would be range or just outstatsing. Fortunately for Zoro, he has both of those things if we do go with this interpretation. Again, Boa scales to the Seraphim who never touch base Zoro a single time. Even if you said he gets careless losing a sword, Mosshead has air slashes, Haki emission, plus a whole nother form to cut down Boa from a distance. Low diff. This is the dumbest fight ever. Zoro versus Katakuri is still highly debated for no reason. Think about it for a second. The same Luffy who equals Kat got one shot by base Kaido. Base Kaido is weaker than Hybrid Kaido. Ashura Zoro could outspeed Hybrid Kaido. I know there's a lot more context than that, but what do you think the author is trying to portray here? The only basis for this argument even existing is not Future Sight, but the animation of Luffy versus Katakuri. Of course, anime fans do what they do, and when they see this fight, their reaction is, "What do you mean Zoro is faster than Katakuri? Did you not see how fast they was moving, bruh? Did you not see the animation?" Well, yeah, I also saw base Zoro react/move faster than that same Luffy twice while he was using Future Sight. I witnessed Katakuri beat up Luffy for 12 hours only to lose to fewer attacks. Those same attacks being weaker than anything the Scabbards can do. Cat can actually keep up with Zoro in terms of speed, however he's certainly not clashing, potentially getting one shot. There is an argument to be made he has worse endurance than Doflamingo. Speaking of Dofi, that Paramecia awakening shit is not going to be an issue. If you think Cat is going to break the swordsman's footing, remember, base Luffy also couldn't fly, yet that was never a problem. Despite all that, this debate will probably never end until Zoro himself gets Future Sight. Then most will come around to him being as fast as Katakuri, even though he's faster. I can't get mad at people for not being in-depth power scalers because ain't nobody got time for that shit. Plus visual bias is kinda human nature. I have it too. The real problem is when I say all of this logic, yet people still try to argue. Do that shit in the comments and you will lose. Low diff. Ace should be in the same ballpark as Zoro. Unlike everyone before, he actually fights a top tier for an extended period of time. In fact, he battles the best top tier in the world, Old Whitebeard, with them clashing multiple times and Ace disarming him. Though still, these feats are just not enough for Mosshead. Ace's fire could lightly scar Whitebeard, whose durability is below Kaido's, and you know where I'm going with that. Speed isn't any better, like we could assume Ace scales to base Kaido or something because he was able to box the weakest version of a stronger Yonko, though Zoro still has King of Hell, making him faster. And if you want to push an agenda to say Ace is Admiral level because he can react to them, then go ahead, but it doesn't work. Marco is probably stronger than Ace, and I'll tell you how he fares against Zoro in a bit. Low diff, maybe high if you really want to push that future Pirate King agenda. Now yes, I'm counting people Zoro already beat because I really want to talk about this fight. Every time people argue a Zoro matchup, this battle will be used as an anti-feat until he gets his next major fight. For instance, Zoro versus Law, fuck that. Law fought an Emperor during Egghead and he fought Lucci. Obviously, they're not in the same tier, even though Law was no diffed by Blackbeard and Zoro easily beat Lucci, which is what I'm here to talk about. Obviously, we as fans recognize this is not a main fight. Lucci gets very little panel time and it ends abruptly. The main issue with the battle is the first panels. The swordsman is in King of Hell, with them going back and forth. This has to be a high diff fight, right? Well, are you sure about that? Because the next time we see them, Zoro has no Conqueror's Haki with only 2 swords, a definitive weaker form than he was using. Well, maybe King of Hell was too much for him, so he dropped it, which is what I would agree with if it wasn't for the final act of the battle. Lucci smacks the Kitetsu out of Zoro's hand, with the swordsman remaining very calm, having a casual conversation. Then he boxes with one sword for a bit before Jinbei pulls up and Sanji calls him a liability through the intercom. This causes Zoro to literally lock in. He dodges Lucci's named attack while moving towards him, catches the Kitetsu, plus equips his third sword while still dodging, then bodies Lucci in one hit. He's left in critical condition, not even being able to dodge an attack from Jinbei, whereas before he could dodge Gear 5. That's another point. People act as if fighting Lucci is an anti-feat in of itself, even though the only other scaling he has is losing to G5 Luffy. It's a Jogo situation all over again. JJK fans thought Jogo was absolute fodder because he got embarrassed by one of the strongest characters in the series. Then everyone's jaws dropped when we saw him squad wipe 3 first grades with no difficulty. Same here. Saying something like fighting Lucci is not impressive at all has no basis because you don't even know how strong he is, you're just saying shit. However, if we try to get an actual estimate, Lucci was reacting to G5. This version of Luffy should be at least on the same level as when he initially awakened Hancock when you take away all his advanced Haki. So Lucci would be around the level of the rooftop fighters, probably a bit higher. But no matter what you think about the fight, it is still a fact Zoro won with ease. It's not even like he was drained from it either, as we later see him clash evenly with a Gorosei member, who has one of the 12 strongest blades on the planet. This is also a trope Oda does where he'll have Zoro or Sanji hold back until it's absolutely necessary, like in Punk Hazard or the beginning of the raid, where Zoro went from needing to fight a Toby Roppo member in a 2v1 to blitzing and one-shotting that same person with no effort. It's usually used to make the situation more tense. Low diff. King was a tougher fight for the swordsman. For one, he's able to tank 2 named attacks from King of Hell, whereas it's debatable on whether or not Lucci was beaten with Conqueror's Haki. Most likely not. What I really want to say for this part is King is not faster than Zoro. The moment giving people this impression is when King went flames off trying to kick him. Keyword trying, because Zoro blocks the kick, meaning he reacted to it. In order to react to something, you first have to perceive it, so no, just because King vanished doesn't mean he blitzed Zoro. One Piece characters disappear on each other all the time without being faster. Lucci vanished against Gear 2 Luffy twice, even though G2 was always greater and could always react to him. Luffy disappeared on Katakuri at the start of their fight, yet we know Kat was way better and easily caught up to him. In fact, King's blitz would be inconsistent as base form Zoro could already react to flames off speed. On top of that, the first time Mosshead did damage to King was most likely after his Tiger Hunt attack, meaning he was the one doing the blitzing. That part is consistent, as after King fails to kick Zoro, he wasn't fast enough to dodge Bird Dance. So yeah, while it may seem like a high diff, King of Hell was always faster and defeated his opponent in 3 hits. Low diff. Zoro versus Sanji. Mid diff. Law versus the swordsman is a whole topic in of itself, which I already made an entire video on. TLDR, Zoro is faster than Law and can negate his basic devil fruit powers. If you want actual reasoning, go to that video and cry there. What I'm crying about though is Law's teleportation. There was a whole section debunking the idea of Law's teleportation making him faster, but I didn't use this very obvious piece of evidence which easily destroys the entire argument. So when the Yonko throw their dual attack at the worst generation, it is too fast / large to avoid. The only options were to face it head on or Law teleporting them. Guess which one happened first? Base form Zoro blocked the attack before Law could teleport them, meaning he reacted faster than Law, or at least Law's shambles ability. So in a one-on-one confrontation, if Law tries to teleport, Zoro can avoid whatever comes out of it, assuming they're going towards each other, of course. To be fair, King without special durability did take some Conqueror slashes. Law has better endurance than King, so he should be able to take a few more, most likely even more than Sanji as well. Mid diff. This is where the fight becomes extremely close, because low-key, Yamato has better showings than Zoro. But let's stop right there. See, both Yamato and Ashura Zoro are equal to a suppressed hybrid Kaido. King of Hell is equal to Ashura, so that would be the same. Though the thing is, Yama has one better feat being able to react to Thunder Bagua, though Bagua's being faster than Kaido's normal hits, which is why he was able to blitz Law. However, the same goes for Mosshead. He has multiple blitzing attacks which amp his speed. It's questionable if that's what he used during the Ashura attack, or he just outpaced Kaido. Even so, by the scaling mentioned earlier, he should still be able to react and block. Essentially, since he and Yamato have the same base stats, this battle turns into one of attrition. Who goes down first? Now, Zoro does have better endurance feats than Yamato in base. Anything she does to him is not doing insane damage, as he was surviving these same types of attacks from Kaido. Not saying she won't be effective at all, yet you see what I'm getting at. At the same time though, does King of Hell last that long? Well, we know it can last longer than it did against King, as by that point Zoro was already drained of Haki. He used it against Lucci, and even if you say it ran out there, he clearly wasn't done at all. The fight between Yamato and Kaido didn't last that long either, plus we never really see the limits of her endurance / stamina. To assume it's as high as Zoro's, Kid's, or Law's is kinda baseless. Mosshead has better endurance, his attacks are more lethal, and anything Yamato does with her ice powers, he can cut through. I believe he takes the fight with high difficulty, but if you think King of Hell doesn't last that long and Yamato is just more of a master of advanced Conqueror's Haki, then yeah, he'll eventually lose. Also, for those who say, Yamato knocked Kaido down when Zoro said he couldn't, stop spouting this as if it's an anti-feat and not just a personal goal for him. Luffy knocked Kaido down the first time they fought. The Scabbards did it, Law did it by throwing rocks. All of these attacks Zoro scales above. Let's not act like it's easier to knock someone over by cutting them across the chest, rather than dropping an anvil directly on their head. Kaido also never praises Yamato in the same way he does for the swordsman. Marco is a very difficult opponent for any character to beat. Unlike every character before or after, he won't go down with a few slashes. The Phoenix will rise from everything Zoro throws at him, turning it into another battle of attrition, yet this time it's worse. Marco himself is no slouch. He's most likely on the same speed tier as Mosshead, being able to blitz King, which is also supported by the fact he 1v1 Big Mom for a bit. His attack power is alright, damaging durable fighters like Queen, but definitely nothing like Hancock. Since Marco can heal from everything, you would think Zoro could just fight in base, right? But no, he needs King of Hell to keep up. It puts Zoro in a very sticky situation, though we are aware Marco does let some attacks slide through his healing, as he's shown bleeding in Wano. What I think it comes down to is the fact that Marco paved the way for Zoro and Sanji to surpass him. He basically says it's their time right before they came to save everyone. And before anyone says, why isn't Sanji here then? Remember, this isn't exactly a strength ranking, and I think he can beat Marco in a different way. Even so, you don't have to take the narrative like that, as Marco could just be letting the young niggas have their time, and it doesn't mean he got surpassed, which is why I put him this high, as obviously he has a higher chance of beating Zoro. Yes, 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 the only high tier that can beat Zoro. Eustace, Captain, Kid. But he's not really stronger, it's just a matchup thing. First off, the swordsman is factually above Kid, as Rayleigh states Conqueror's Haki is based on individual growth, meaning anyone with advanced Conquerors is stronger than those with the regular version. He also just outscales him blatantly, as Kid has the same stats as Law, who can't contend with Hybrid Kaido at all. Meanwhile, Zoro is actually able to challenge him. So just as the rooftop fighters were blitzed by Hybrid Kaido and never hit him, this fight will be similar, though Kid should still be able to react to his normal swings like King did. Plus, he can tank multiple sword slashes. Kid's magnetism will not work on Zoro, as he can use Haki to resist it just like the Emperor's did. When I say that, people think I'm stating he has as much Haki as them, but no. Law resists Devil Fruit powers, which he learned to do from the Yonko, so someone with greater Haki could do the same. However, that only works for non-physical fruit powers. Law can't teleport the Emperors, but he is able to use Gamma Knife or K-Room. Luffy can't affect Kaido with Toon Force from a distance, like making his eyes pop out, yet when he touches Kaido, he turns into a jump rope. Kid couldn't use his normal magnetism on Big Mom, though that changes with a sign. It has to be at close range to activate, but when it does, Kid can give any target polarity. Despite Big Mom resisting his powers before, it no longer works, and Napoleon is stuck to her. The same goes for Zoro. If we're being fair, giving Kid as much metal as in Onigashima, all of that will fly towards Zoro as well. Yes, it will do insane damage, as not only was Kid's metal shown to be hurting Kaido and causing Big Mom to block, but Zoro doesn't have their durability. He did only use a sign twice against Big Mom, yet remember, he was saving the awakening for later in the fight. Eustace at full stamina could use the power a lot more. Now the only issue is Zoro's speed. As said earlier, Kid can't hit him, though he doesn't have to make contact to use a sign. He only has to be at close range, which is going to happen. So what do you think? How many slashes can Kid withstand from King of Hell? How many assigns can Zoro tank before he drops? And how many minutes is this video, because I'm going to hate editing it?